Here from Team Flower, and today I wanted to talk about treating tent tops. A lot of times tent tops will have a wire that go across the top of the tent, and there's a lot of potential for adding a little bit of greenery up there. It's a really popular thing that a lot of people are asking for, and I wanted to show you some different types of foliage that you could use. This is Deflexus. Smilax is a really common thing. A lot of times people are asking me about Smilax substitutes. This is one that I recommend. Now, the thing about Deflexus that you have to watch out for is that if it does get dry, it's going to start shedding quite a lot. So you want to make sure that you take a tarp with you to put down to catch all these little needles that will fall out of it, and be gentle with it in that way. There's a couple of other things that I want to show you. So I'm going to take what I've done here apart step by step so you can see how I put it together. And then we are going to put up a new one with some Italian ruscus and get it all put together in there. So this is a really easy treatment, but anytime that you're doing anything overhead, you should double the amount of time that it would take you to do it on your feet, because you're going to be up and down the ladder. You're going to need somebody on the ground and somebody in the air, keeping an eye on things. So this is a pretty labor-intensive offering to add to your repertoire, your floral design menu. And the other thing that you need to keep in mind whenever you're doing a project like this is that whatever the most expensive foliage is that you might need to accomplish this task, that's what you need to price for. Because while something like Smilax, you can get a big bale of it and it'll go a really long way, you might end up needing to purchase something like Italian ruscus that comes in a little bit of a smaller bunch size and overall might not have quite as much coverage. So I think it's really important, if you haven't yet, to either add to your order, if you don't live near a wholesaler, just one bunch of each of these different types of foliages and greens, and get used to the sizing, kind of the space, all those sort of things that come in with them. Ask your rep if this is a pretty accurate representation of bunch size and fullness year round, so that you can get a sense of what your pricing should be on these particular types of pieces. So what I've done here, what I like about this particular type of foliage is that you can it is flexible. So like the Smilax, you can do this nice little weaving piece, and while it's not all one big gigantic piece, it is something that you can wire together just a little bit here and there to be able to get a similar kind of in and out wavy type of look, which I really do like quite a lot. So I have just attached these things with simple little pieces of wire. No big deal there at all. You want to go for minimal as much as possible on your mechanics, things that are very discreet. For me, a zip tie in this kind of application would be just a little bit overkill, because this is a really lightweight product. I don't need to have something that is more weight bearing and that could be more visible. And so to get this started, I put together a couple of main branching sections. So you can see, like right here, I have a branch of about 5 or 6 stems that I was getting something going, building a little bit of a base with it. And then this piece is the one that I wove in and did a little bit of in and out and up and down. So I would consider this type of arrangement to have those two phases to it, I guess you could say, where the first one, and I'm just going to pull out all my little accent pieces. So these are the things that give it a little bit of personality, that have been looped in and around. And then you can see here, this was a group of a whole bunch of stems. This is a group of a whole bunch of stems. And then this one here going in the opposite direction, just so that we didn't have everything going in the same direction. There might be a time or a design that you're doing when that makes sense, but I wanted to have something that was going right and left and up and down and in and out. So anyway, this is one bunch. Also, I'll just mention I used one bunch of product, and it has about 6 feet of coverage at that particular thickness. And you can purchase this in large boxes, and it'll come more than likely in a plastic bag inside the box that you can keep moist and cool to prevent some of this needle loss. These bunches I needed to purchase straight out of the cooler and drive a couple of hours with me, and so they dried out a little bit on their journey. One of the things, and I know some of you can relate to not being close to your wholesaler, which is a bummer. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to get product in, but we do the best that we can and we keep moving ahead, right? So this is the Italian ruscus that I mentioned. In terms of leaf shape, color, this is probably the closest substitute that you're going to get to a Smilax. It still is going to bend and move for you a little bit, but it's not these, you know, the size is a little bit different. So there really is not like a perfect substitute for that really large scale vine, but these are the ones that are in that medium category that I feel like you can work with as needed to get something going. These big chunky branches that are not flexible, those just need to come off straight away. And we're going to do something similar to what I did with the Ming. I'm going to layer a couple of pieces in here. And then we'll secure them as one. I just like this long wire, and I just clip it into little pieces to size as I go along. And we're just going to do a pretty simple twist around the edges here to get it stuck. Get a little shake. Sometimes they need a little bit more support higher up, but I think we're good on this one. So you can see how I'm creating, still thinking through a little bit of depth, just like I would in a regular arrangement. So I've got one that's going over the side, I've got one going to the back, one going to the front, because I want it to be a multi-dimensional type of piece. Italian ruscus, a pretty expensive green compared to the fern that we just were working with, or not the fern, the Deflexus, sorry. There's another thing called Ming fern that can be kind of fun to use in these applications, and I had that in my mind as well. So this, what you're looking at, this is your, and we'll save this one for later, but that's one bunch of the ruscus. And so we're gonna need to do probably 3 times as many bunches on this particular look. And I'm going to start going in the opposite direction here. As you're thinking about being a little bit shy on your pricing with this, I would just really encourage you to think about making sure that your labor is handled appropriately in addition to the product, because I know that there can be kind of an assumption that, well, Greenery is inexpensive or whatever. It's actually not all that expensive with things trending in the direction of Greenery from a materials standpoint. But then also just imagine yourself in a really warm location. Maybe you're under a clear top tent, in which case something like this that is very leathery is important because it's super tough out of water. Italian ruscus is fabulous for all kinds of applications that are out of water. And also don't expect yourself to do this all by yourself. Make sure that you've got, anytime you go overhead, make sure you've got a team of people to help you. So this part down here, again, at the places where it starts getting not very flexible anymore, I just like to get rid of those. You may decide that you want to weave some other types of foliage in with the Italian ruscus. Perhaps maybe you're in a position where you've already priced it out, you're already doing it, you're committed, and you realize, oh man, I didn't charge quite enough for this and now I'm in a pinch. You could mix some different materials in here unless it's something that's really going to drastically affect design for your client that would be out of their aesthetic and their line, but you could mix some less expensive things in here. So I have got some huckleberry that I'm going to show you. And I find that this, with it being tougher, is a little bit more difficult to wrangle. Again, thinking through the labor piece. The Smilax goes up and it's super easy, very quick, but because there's not a great sub for it, you've got to plan for some of these other moments to happen. And then if you end up having a little bit of extra money in your materials budget, then you can beef up some other projects that you've got going on or something else. But I think it's always good to be prepared. Speaking of prepared, I already cut wires. Here they are. They're just like little twist ties. Other things you might be able to use depending on season, hops. It's a heavier branch and something that I am allergic to. But that is probably the closest in terms of body to Smilax. It is a large scale vine, but more seasonally available towards late summer and fall in most areas. A lot of times it'll come out of Oregon, so you can do a Google search on Oregon hops and come up with some direct ship kinds of places if you need them. Let's add a little bit of this huckleberry in here so you can see what that might be like. It could be, this could be as is. And when you step back and look, some of these little smaller pieces that don't need a whole lot of support, you can layer in there to cover up some of your stem ends. And this big bunch, really great value for a green. It is one-sided, which is the thing to take into consideration with huckleberry, but I love using this in arbors and overhead installations and things like that because I'm able to get a whole bunch of it, and it's net shaped. So depending on what it is that I need to do, there's a lot of places where other flowers can kind of be woven into this. If maybe we were on a type of framework base, like more like a lattice or something like that, this is really great for covering up some of those mechanics, and with it having all of these little catch points, makes it easy to layer and weave into pieces like this. And I like, this is a simple thing, but like the Italian ruscus, the whole stem is green. And I really like that this huckleberry has a brown stem right here. It makes it feel, to me, a little bit more real. There we go. I don't feel like you need a whole lot of it, just a little something to add in and cover up some of these branchy spots. So that's what I've got for you for Smilax substitutes. Let me check my list really quick and see if there's any that I forgot to mention here. So we did the Deflexus first. We talked about hops. Those are heavy. So keep that in mind whenever you're thinking about them. Like if you're putting them on this type of wire, you'll notice the Deflexus was really light. And now we've got a little bit of a bend in the wire. This is a heavier configuration of materials. The hops even heavier. Here we use the Italian ruscus and we use the huckleberry. And plumosa is also another option. Usually is inexpensive and coming in a larger bunch size, but that's more fern-like. I feel like if somebody was really loving Smilax, that plumosa is probably not the right product for them. But if you have somebody who's more woodsy fern kind of look, that might be a consideration for you. And then we of course talked about Smilax. So that's what I've got for you. You're just looking for things that can serve a similar purpose, a similar shape, size, texture, and as many of those things as you can get. That's how much more close your look and your substitution will be when you're thinking through those elements of design. So thank you for watching, and thank you for bearing with me through my not being able to see me very well in here across the foliage today, but it's been fun to be here with you, and it's always a pleasure to help make your load a little bit lighter.